All right. Hey guys. Sorry for the slightly delayed stream start. I had some other stuff I was doing. So, um couple of changes since the last stream. You may have noticed. New microphone. Awesome. I'm still fiddling with it. I actually did a video earlier today where I talked about it a little bit more. That'll be coming out tomorrow. Some stuff prevented me from posting it today. So that'll be fun. Oh, I just realized I need to actually plug my phone in and start streaming the game here. And I'm also setting something up with another content creator, and that's actually the primary reason I was late. I was doing some final touches on something. So yeah, my apologies on that, but we're here now, and that's what matters. So, I've also gone and played around a little bit with the chat box. Hopefully it works now. So originally, I've been using Streamlabs OBS for my content. But there were some restrictions and some stuff that was happening I wasn't exactly like the happiest about. So I just went back to original OBS. So I got to get used to this all stuff again. Anyways, same number of alters as last time. Oh, God, that sucks. Base one. Oh, okay, hold on. I think I see what's going on here. Should be where the timeout is. Let me just remove that timeout. I have a feeling that's what's causing this issue here, where the chat is not going right to the top. I also think I have to probably play around with, oh, excuse me, the actual stream sync. I know it's in here somewhere. Hold on. I would think I set it to like 30 seconds or something. I may play with that another day and just deal with the deal with it fading out later. Yeah, the fun part with doing stuff live, I couldn't really test the chat box as much as I wanted to before the stream. So that kind of screwed some stuff up. Yeah, hide that, hide that. Where's the fade out? I know the fade out has an option here somewhere. Or not, apparently. Okay. I know it's in here. I'm just apparently not able to find it, which I guess isn't a terrible surprise for whatever godforsaken reason. CSS has never really been my strong suit. Anyway, the game's all about alter. Yeah, it really is, and I find that that's like super like depressing. I miss when we had like new suits being added, and it was actually super exciting to just look at the new suits because we didn't rely on alters to make them viable. But with like just the low stats versus high stats, it doesn't really make sense to run altered suits these days. But, you know, it's what it is. When a game gets old enough, you eventually kind of hit this point. It's actually really bothering me now with this chat box. Ugh, why am I letting it bother me so much? Really shouldn't. Man, okay, whatever. I'll deal with this. It's actually driving me nuts. Sorry, guys. I'm chat widget. There we go. Oh. There it is. Sorry, there's that first tool. Wait, where did my settings go? Oh, did I close it like a genius? I did too. It's, yeah, set. Sorry guys, I'm just reconfiguring something here to get rid of the fade out because I realize it's really, if you can, you know, look at the chat, it's really screwing things up. I believe it was, yes, that was the name of the font. Leave size as is for now. Don't worry about that. Okay. Excellent. All right, let me just change the font size really quick here and just change a couple of things. Remove that. Font name. Bump you up to, I think. That should be a good size. Messages should be smaller. Cool. Don't need those. Don't need that. I hate how absolutely busted this, there's this really nice UI for like creating stuff, but yikes. I'll worry about that when it breaks. I might even look at changing the actual zoom and font size of everything here. That may also fix my issue. But I guess I'll do more of that after the, probably actually make that a distinct font. Cool. We'll go with that for now. Looks mediocre, but you know what? I'm not a perfectionist. I just want it to be legible. I'm also kind of in the middle of dinner. Today was really rushed, honestly, to get this stream out. Anyhow, let's start from the top down. We're going to look at the new event suit, the Comp for Amazing. And as always, we're going to work our way around. We're going to go through the event shop. We're going to check out the gacha, animations on Twitter. I hope they're there. And then wrap up with alterations. Yeah, still hasn't updated. Curses. Right. Just so you guys know, I'll bring this up again at the end of the video. So tomorrow, like I said, I have 2 new videos coming. One of them is just kind of a general look at this neat thing video. Haven't done one in a while. But the one after that is a giveaway. I know everyone likes their giveaways, and I'm going to be doing one. So stay tuned. It is 100% the video's coming out tomorrow. The giveaway will also start tomorrow. I don't want to say what it is for yet. I'll do that either on my Discord tonight, or you can just look at the video tomorrow. Anyhow, just so you guys know what's up. Anyway, let's look at the camphor. Actually, I saw some questions in chat now that I'm thinking about it. You mentioned you'd reach out to Nick about any new dev letters, any response. Not about the dev letters. I never got anything back on that. I don't know if it's because there's no dev letters planned or they just didn't relay the information. When you get to be a company the size of Bandai Namco, it really runs into left hand, right hand problem. You know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So yeah, it's just a thing that happens when you get really big. So for all we know, there's nothing, but there could also be a lot of stuff and it just, you know, got lost somewhere along the way in terms of information. But the news is still going to come out, right? What do you think would happen if From Software was given the Gundam license? Alright, so If they made Gundam in the vein of Armored Core, that'd be really cool. Because something to keep in mind, right? I think that's one thing people really like about Gundam is being able to really personalize it. If they created a game where you could do like Gundam Breaker style, where you can select all the different parts you want for your machine, but then also go into like older Armored Core level of tweaking for every single part, you could get some really, really interesting builds. Granted, there'd be a hell of a lot of cheese, but you know, it is what it is. It's a very interesting idea. Like Monolith Soft, right? I would say they would be ideal for any open world games. They're really good at optimization, right? FromSoft is really, really good at making gritty, difficult games, right? So Gundam would be right up their alley if they chase something not in the arcade vein, right? It's an interesting idea. We need a new console version of Breaker. It's been a while since a new Breaker game got released. That wasn't bad. You guys probably remember, but the reason this game was Gundam Battle Gunpla Warfare originally was to separate itself from the Gundam Breaker IP until everything cooled down with that recent release of it. And now, it's just GBM. So hopefully the next one's better. That'd be really good. I did enjoy Breaker 3. I bought that when I was at a convention, and that was a lot of fun. I got a lot of hours out of that. Yeah, Alex actually just summarized what I said. Hey, Xcoder. The one who needs new Breaker game is PC. I think I just new Breaker game in general. When it comes to like game development, right? I understand why developers can be kind of cagey about adding new content to PC, right? Like new games. For example, right? Armored Core is going to release. I have no doubt the PC release, if it's not like same day, like it might be same day because it's a big AAA, but I would not be surprised at all if the Steam release was delayed a little bit. That's like the standard for a lot of these games from Japan and like overseas. I should clarify, overseas. They're very afraid of putting it on PC for one reason or another, whether it's the local market barely plays PC, because if you look, right, like especially in Japan, a PC adoption rate is really low in comparison to surrounding areas and in the West and everything. If you look at just general, like piracy is a big one as well, right? That you don't want to release on PC just to get it pirated left, right, center. All these other reasons. I understand where they're coming from. But simultaneously, like, piracy has been shown to drive sales in a good way, because people are going to pirate a game really no matter what if they want to pirate it. But the people that want to buy it, a lot of the time, want to demo the game first. I'm not saying go pirate games, it's okay. I'm just saying from the perspective of, someone that plays video games, I've actually gone out of my way to buy games I typically may not really want to play. Like, it's like, I don't know, when it has a demo. An example of this, quite a few years ago, I bring this up every now and again, Secrets of Grindia on Steam, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. The game has a playable demo with a good chunk of content, and I was like, I'm not really sure if I'd enjoy this game, but there was a demo, so I downloaded it and I tried it, and I was like, it's actually a lot better than I expected, and I bought it, and I never really played it again after that. But demos are, I think, a really important relic from when I was younger that I think need to really, really make a comeback and just become the standard, right? Because no longer can you walk into a Walmart or a Toys R Us or GameStop or whatever and just demo a game for like 35, 40 minutes and see if it's something that you actually like. That was one of my favorite things of going to the local mall. When my parents were like, oh, we need to go to the mall to do some shopping or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll come along. I just run into the EB Games, stand in front of one of the demo booths and just, play video games for like an hour while they're out doing stuff. And I got to try tons of different games. I got to play on consoles I didn't own, and it was really, really cool. And it kind of opened those doors for me as to trying different genres I may not have liked or whatever. So I really hope that, we see a bigger kickback in terms of demos. But I understand, like, there's a big fear of piracy. There's a big fear of potentially losing pre-orders and all that stuff. But, like, man, there's a lot of games I've just out of spite not purchased because there was no demo, and it was just like, man, I really want to try this game before I buy it. I'm just gonna not. Are you looking forward to the new Armored Core releasing this year? Yes. God, I love Armored Core. It's difficult. The last one I really sat down and played was Last Raven. It kicked the crap out of me, and I was like, this is interesting. It was definitely, I was younger, so I didn't have such a high tolerance for like super difficult or really high customization games, but I love mecha as a genre. Looking back at Armored Core, it's like, it's really, really nice, and this IP needs to continue existing. It can't just die out, especially with how difficult it is to find good mech stuff these days. But Fires of Rubicon, oh man, I'm excited for that. That looks really, really nice. And the public breaks, hack PC releases are cool, and small, it's not okay for cheating. It really depends on the scenario. If it's a single player game, I don't care if people are using cheats or hacks or stuff. It's a single player game. That's whoop-de-doo, man. If you need to do that for accessibility purposes, or you just don't want to get good, or you want to coast through the game and it doesn't have an easy difficulty, I'm not going to judge. It's a single player game. But the second you start using any kind of advantage based tool, so whether it's a map hack, some kind of memory dump, speed hacks, any kind of cheats, no matter how minor, even like with the recent Final Fantasy 14 drama with the super zooming out stuff, right? You might think, oh, it's not a big deal. It's an advantage that some players don't have access to without installing a bunch of third-party software. To me, that's cheating. And honestly, the second a game becomes multiplayer, even co-op, man, that's not okay. Unless you and everyone else that's actively playing in that match with you knows you're using these things, it has no place. Honestly, man, it's not cool. But like, cheats are going to exist no matter what. They've existed on every handheld I've ever had, right? On my PSP, on my DS, on my on the Switch, on the PlayStation 4, the PS2, everything has had cheats. And people will always make cheats for games and consoles. It just comes down to how intrusive do they end up being, right? And that's kind of the up in the air bit. Went from playing this every day, haven't touched it in like 2 years. Content's so great. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm almost in the same boat as you. I did go from playing it every day to kind of just touching it here and there and just kind of keeping up with what's going on. There's a lot of things they can do to revitalize the game. It's just, I understand why it can be difficult to implement it. They may also have, like, a lot of people theorize they shunted a bunch of workers from this to other projects to start getting other stuff off the door, like Eternal. I really want to see more Eternal stuff. But it can be rough sometimes looking at the state of this game and like trying to keep all the super hype up. But I know the devs still somewhere really care about this game, because especially originally, right, when we met them in LA and we talked to them there, they were super invested in making sure this game did well. And even though it may seem like, they've kind of stopped caring recently, I guarantee you they don't. It's just they have to look at from like a bigger picture perspective. They have to start developing other games, newer games, and this has kind of hit like a development wall, I think, where it's difficult to implement new content and make people want to obtain the new content without completely derailing everything. It's a weird place to be in balance wise, and once a game starts reaching a few years old, everyone hits this wall, and it's really just how do you get past it. Some games never do. Some games do an amazing job of getting past that. Some games just don't care, ignore it, and they just keep putting out new collectible stuff, characters, whatever. It just really depends on how they decide to approach it. So I'm hoping it keeps going, because I do like this whole build your machine thing, and I really like, in general, the game itself. It's just, same thing day in, day out for years does kind of eventually go, want to try their stuff. Looks like you've lost weight. Oh, have I? So, I keep hearing that. Personally, I don't feel it or notice it, but I guess you're technically you're the worst judge of yourself because you see yourself every day. You don't really notice any drastic changes. But we'll see. Like I don't really pay too much attention to that. I just kind of survive and do stuff. But yeah. Cheers, chicken. I'll go for a good steak. Anyways, let's actually do the game stuff now, because we've been at this for about 20 minutes and I've done almost zero game talking stuff. So let's do this. Get cracking. I'm actually on the ball for once with content, so. All right. The camp for amazing. Okay, so this is going to be, it's an alternate tribute if I remember right, because we got this suit a hot minute ago. Like that was what, like a year and a half now or something? Anyways, alternate tribute. So comfort amazing head. When armor's 80% or more, shooting power boosted by 25%. So this is a really powerful trait for a welfare. 80% or more armor, that's really easy to do. You know, just spawn in, don't get hit. You'll have more than 80% of your armor, no problem. Shooting power boosted by 25%. Now, of course, if you look at limited suits and whatnot, you're going to be looking at 30% as the base, 35, 45, right? As you get higher up. But for welfares, 25% is extremely high. I think the highest we've seen a welfare go for this is actually 30%, maybe 35, but it had a very restrictive activation requirement versus this where it's just have enough HP. Honestly, for the reward that you get, the 25% shooting power boost, this is really good. As far as welfares go, this is an amazing trait. Of course, for shot machines, completely worthless for melee, but I hope I don't have to explain that too hard. All right, high mobility ace exclusive. So both of these are canonically on point. The suit was for an ace pilot, and it is definitely high mobility. So that's nice. Ace exclusive, obviously, as well as one of the core shooter tags. So you definitely want to have that for a shot build. And high mobility is a very accessible tertiary tag. It's just unfortunate that it boosts melee attack instead of shot, but you know what? It does activate a lot of traits, so okay. And then statistically, I want to look at this without the marks. 3,100, then with carryover 34, 35-ish. All right, so it sits relatively high up. It's definitely not the best that we've ever seen, but this sits in that like top 2% bracket area for sure. So that's really cool. Overall, nice. I'm actually liking kind of where this is going. Looking at just the head alone, we have a really powerful trait for a welfare. We have respectable stats for a shot head, no problem. And the word tag combination is really nice as well. Now, hopefully this holds on as we keep going. Torso. Oi. There we go. Middle shooter job, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. Middle shooter jobs are a dime a dozen, so you're not going to really have any issue getting that all working. The EX skill cooldown reduction of 20% is a very powerful modifier. Typically, 20% is like the highest that we see outside of limited alteration stuff that goes up higher than that. So this is a very, very good torso as far as welfare go. You have effectively the highest mod you can ask for outside of limited content, and the only requirement is use a middle shooter. Considering this is a shot-focused suit, you're not going to have much issue with that at all. High mobility, and unfortunately we lose ace exclusive for a 4 urban area tag. I'm not a big fan of the 4 line of tags. I think they could be much better implemented than they currently are, a lot like the job license gauge stuff. The biggest issue I have with the 4 tags, you don't really have a lot of control over the map that you play on most of the time. So with that in mind, when you're actually doing content, you're not going to get the full benefit of the 4 tag. unless of course you luck out and your map happens to be considered urban. If we could actually select the maps that we were playing on, I think they'd be much better. They're okay, but you know, I think they just could be a lot better than they currently are. Granted, they are much better than original. Originally it was 1% and then 3% if you were on the right stage. Now it's 3% and 5% if you're on the right stage. So they definitely gave it a powerful buff, but unfortunately, without being able to pick the map, 3% is pretty much the considered standard for this. And it's not amazing, it's not bad, it's kind of in that middle of, that's okay. All right, next up here. The stats. So typically when we're looking at a welfare torso, 1,000's kind of that baseline expected, going between 10 and 1,200, 1,000, 1,200 in there. That's okay. That's definitely in the, yeah, we're good here. Once we go past that, we're kind of at like 12 to 1,400, that's all right. We're looking, the numbers are pretty good. Once you go past that, it's like 1,800 is that really high tier cutoff. Past that, it's just really, really good. If it ever goes past 2K, that's just absolutely amazing for a welfare. This base 1,600 out of the gate. For a welfare, stupidly high shot attack. After our carryover of about 300 change, we're looking at just under 2,000. We're like 1,950 shot attack on the torso. As far as welfare torsos go, that is a ridiculously high number. This is kind of like that top 1% deal. Aces, man, that's good. Offensively, really good. Traits, absolutely amazing. Tags, high mobility, workable for urban, I'm not a big fan of, but again, don't let me tell you how to build your suits. You build them however you want. If it works for you, that's all it takes. Remember, with the current inflated stat values we have right now, you don't have to run meta. You don't have to min-max every single aspect of your suit. You just need a couple of potentially 7-star parts, and you should have enough numbers to just kind of steamroll most of the content. So with that in mind, don't worry too much about making sure your suit is the absolute min-max unless you're rat racing in PvP. But unfortunately, if you're doing that, you need a lot of gacha stuff, and chances are you don't want to keep up with that. It's just it's a hassle. Anyways, cool stuff. Where's the GM Sniper K9? I don't know. Where's my Baku, man? You can get your weird GM modifications when I get my Bakus and my Sky Graspers and, my not bipedal suits. Yeah. Even cold. This chicken's really good. Okay, let's check out the cam for amazing arms. When in urban category, EX skill cooldown reduced by 15%. So, this is really weird. It's really weird. So, first of all, if we go and look at the torso for this suit, we get a higher EX skill cooldown reduction, 20% versus this part's 15%. Difference is, the torso only needs a middle shooter job license. You're going to have that no matter, well, not no matter what, but considering you are effectively picking between a long shooter and a mid shooter for your shot machine, you have a 50-50 on paper. In reality, it's much different. But on paper, you have a 50-50 of activating the trait, and you'd probably build around that. And a middle shooter heavily boosts the shot attack of your machine right out the gate. This has a much more restrictive requirement. You must use one of your 3 word slot tags for the urban category. So, well, actually, sorry. Mistake on my part. Brain misinterpreted. If you remember what I was saying earlier, I'll just actually go back to the torso. When it was saying for urban area, what I was saying was if you're on the right map, you'll get the full bonus of this. So instead of the normal 3%, you'd get 5% if you're on a map classified as urban. The way that the ARM EX skill, or trait, I should clarify, works is if you are on a map that's marked as urban, this activates. 15% EX skill cooldown reduction. Problem with it, the same problem still exists. With a middle shooter job on your torso, or for the torso, you get the 20% cooldown reduction. It's very non-restrictive, very easy to activate, works on every single map, effectively all content, no problem. This is a lower boost, 5% less, 15% versus the 20%. Difference is it is a much more restrictive part trait requirement because you need to be on a map that's classified as urban. If these had been switched, I would totally understand. Because 15% cooldown reduction for just having a middle shooter job license for a welfare, that's still really, really good. And it's a little lower than what, the maximum is because it has a very loose activation requirement. But this part has a lower cooldown reduction and it has one of the worst restrictions, which is you are only getting it on a specific map type. The same problem with this and the urban tag kicks in. You don't get to pick the map you play on. You don't have really any control over that outside of a very few limited game modes. With that in mind, this will rarely activate. This is effectively a waste of a trait slot unless you're on an urban map. And because you can't control when you're on an urban map, this is literally just a waste of a trait space, except for that one time out of 20 you're playing on an urban map. If this had been the 20% cooldown reduction and the torso is 15, sure. But it's so bloody weird that the super easy to fulfill restriction gives you the better boost than the extremely restrictive one. That's just, there's a disconnect here somewhere. This is so, if this had been 30%, this may have actually been worth it. Right? Because 30% cooldown reduction on a welfare part, but you have to be on an urban map, that is a very restrictive requirement, but a very powerful payoff for a welfare. But 15% for this, man? Right after giving us a 20% for practically free on the torso? What are you doing? All right, enough of that. Let's move on. High mobility, high firepower. Look at that. We already got... So we had Ace exclusive. We had 4 urban. Now we have high firepower. What's going on with these tertiary tags, man? Anyhow, high firepower. That's available on an unbelievable amount of parts in this game, so you don't have to worry about finding more stuff to help activate it. High mobility, like I said, good tertiary. High firepower is also really, really nice because it boosts shot and melee, so it's kind of that, works on any kind of build part. So that's an actually really good tertiary tag. So our part trait is what the fuck tier. The word tags are all right, workable for sure. And then statistically, okay. So we have a little bit above token melee attack. We're looking at 33, 3400, kind of around in that bracket area. And for a shot primarily, welfare set of arms, that's really high actually. Typically we see 2000, sub 3000, kind of in there. This is just kind of in the mediocre melee welfare arm tier, which is confusing. Shot wise, we're looking at about 1400 or so. Not terrible, not great. To keep in mind as a reference point, at launch, the best shot arms in the game were the Wing Gundam arms, sitting at about 1200 chain shot attack after being upgraded to 60. So this kind of, well, it does better than it kind of out of the gate, but for a shot pair of arms, it definitely kind of seems to be double dipping in shot and melee, resulting in reduced stats for both, which is fine. It's just considering the heavy focus on the other parts for shot so far, it just seems a little weird, Just a wee weird. All right, let's check out the legs. The amazing knife, B+ power, D pierce. Attack with a knife stored in the holster on your waist. Based purely on the description, this sounds like something that's going to be very easy to whiff, a lot like the flurry rush or whatever it is, where you stab a bunch of times with your daggers. With that in mind, that's kind of a dodge. Easy to whiff, easy enough to break yourself out over dodge. It doesn't really bode well for any actual content, I guess is the best way to put it. It's not terrible. but on paper, like purely just power pierce wise and cooldown, sure, powerful enough to use, but I'm pretty sure in practice this animation kind of kills it. All right, we have high mobility and 4 urban comes back. Statistically, all right, keep in mind the legs and backpack are typically the lowest offensively statted parts of the entire frame of the machine. So with that in mind, typically seeing over 1,000 is kind of what we would hope to see. Over 1,200 is really, really good. Over 1,400 definitely puts into kind of like a top 10%. Once we go past 1,800, that's like top 1% tier for welfares already. I think we've seen maybe 1 or 2 go past 2,000 on this, so that's not really even a, concern. With that in mind, after stat carryover, we're looking at like 1,370, 1,400, kind of around there. So the legs are definitely good when it comes to offensive shot stat. Nothing, super duper amazing, but good. And I think that kind of balances out when you think about the head and the torso, all things considered. The EX skill's a wash, tags are workable, at least one of them is. The parameters, all right. All right, let's check the backpack. What are we working with? The amazing winner. All right, a little flex. A- pierce, or sorry, A- power, D pierce, cutscene cooldown, bindable skill, raise shot attack of your squad by 39%. And this is after doing a flurry of attacks, or potentially before. Have to see the animation to know when it applies. End of the day, this is kind of what we would expect to see in a welfare when it comes to a bindable EX skill. Bindable means you lock them into a cutscene that they can't act or move out of once hit. So you effectively shut down the opponent for the duration of this while they do nothing but take damage. A- power for a welfare, that's typically the upper cap. We rarely see it go past that. I say rarely because there have been exceptions. The 39% shot attack boost for a welfare is extremely high. Typically, we see a 29% boost as kind of the cap. Going beyond that, all right. So 39% is really, really good overall. All right. Statistically, we're looking at about 13 change shot attack. So, all right. I gotta say, I like the aesthetics of this backpack quite a bit. I'm also a big fan of big cannons. But yeah. All right. Cool. And high mobility, high firepower tags. I've already talked about the combinations, so I won't do it again. All right. Let's check out all the weapons. I'm also gonna have another bite of my chicken because I'm really hungry. I haven't ate anything really to eat or drink today outside of this chicken, my Coke, and you guys can kind of see it over here. I don't know if you're going to be able to zoom in enough to actually see what these are, but this is what I did my video about earlier. Food's really good when you're hungry. I don't remember the original backpack had a cutscene. I don't think the Comfort did. The binders aren't huge guns. It's the aesthetic. That's pretty much all that matters. It's the aesthetic, right? Like, I may not be... Okay, it's a healthy balance between the two, aesthetic and purpose. If you go and look at, for example, from Gundam Seed, the Genesis, right? I may not be the biggest fan of a really silly looking satellite dish, but I respect that it fires out a gigantic fucking laser that will absolutely obliterate everything in between it and its target. I can respect that. Aesthetically, may not be the most pleasing, but purposefully, whew, you got stuff like the Destroy, right? It's got giant cannons that can do a ton of damage. Aesthetically, nice. And then for its purpose, got things like the Lohengrin, right? Same deal. Aesthetically, I like that cannon look. I like the purpose, the blast behind it. Beautiful. You know, I look at the camphor backpack. It may not be a gigantic laser cannon on the back, like the CeraV, but aesthetically, dude, that shit's clean. And, you know, if you're using it as a custom skin, you don't really have to care. They're imposing. All right. So let's take a look at the amazing knife. Is it truly amazing? While Ace exclusive, all enemies' EX skill recovery reduced by 16%. That's very interesting to see on a welfare. Ace exclusive is really easy to get your hands on. It's a core tag for shot machines. So very high chance you're going to get your hands on it and use it. The all enemy EX skill recovery reduction of 16%, not a high modifier, but considering the accessibility of these weapons, honestly, you could pick up a pair and just slap them on one of your support suits. You know, it could make a difference. Okay, so if you think about it, right? A lot of people are doing the cooldown reduction builds where they have like 100% CDR. Sometimes they go over 110, 120% CDR. This takes 16% off of that. So you could very well actually completely disrupt somebody's build if they're running a 100% CDR build, because you get rid of the 100% CDR. Adds a few seconds of cooldown to stuff. May not sound like a lot, but that could be the difference between you actually getting an EX skill off and dying. I don't know if it's worth a melee slot though, especially considering there's no alterations for it, so you're not going to get a second trait for any near foreseeable future, but maybe slap it on a support machine, see how it goes. Did they forget to change some of the word tags from the original? They might have, honestly. Or they just left the word tags more or less the same between the two suits because, you know, they're the same suit. Weird thought. Honestly, I have no idea. All right. And the one issue with leaving chicken out for so long, it gets dry. Because originally when this came out, it was nice, soft, juicy chicken. But now it's been sitting out for like 40 odd minutes. It's gotten a little dry. It still tastes great though. It's terrible. I want to stop eating so I don't choke on stream, but I can't stop eating because it tastes so good. All right. High mobility for urban tags. I've already talked about the combo, so I'm not going to do it again. And statistically, 3,100 melee attack. Okay. Do keep in mind that the new standard high-end welfare weapons go over 4K for their primary stat purpose. So if these had like 4,000 melee attack, these would be really good. 3,100 melee attack definitely puts them on the lower end of okay melee weapons. Of course, keeping in mind these are for a shot machine, so we can't expect them to be absolutely groundbreaking. But pair that with the word tag combination and, you know, everything else. The trait's very interesting, I'll give it that. But outside of that, this weapon's very mediocre. It requires the Ace exclusive tag, but it's not on the part. Yeah, that can definitely be an issue. But Ace exclusive is also just a very easy tag to get your hands on and activate. So while it may not be on the part itself, it's not like it's really a huge demerit or anything. It's not like you're going to have any real difficulties getting your hands on that word tag to begin with. So it may be weird, but it's not really that big of a deal. Really should have gotten a knife, all things considered. Okay. So let's look at the Comfort Amazing Beam Saber. With power attribute, all enemy, all damage, plus 25%. That is a ridiculously good trait for a welfare. So the way that this is worded, it's a little weird for any first timers. But while you have the power attribute active on your suit, in other words, 5 or more parts on your machine are of the power attribute, this being one of them, the enemies will take 25% more all damage. So any type of damage source will do 25% more. The wording on this is very weird. It just has to do with the battle formula. Typically, up until I think sometime last year, we only had one real type of offensive steroid. And it was, for example, this would have been all damage boosted by 25% or shooting power boosted by 25%. But then they started adding a new type of buff, which was all enemies shooting damage plus 25%, all enemies all damage plus 25%, all enemies EX skill damage plus, whatever. And although the translation's a little wonky, it just fits in on the other side of the battle formula. So where we used to have just continuously stacking shooting power boost, EX skill power boost, and all that, we now have the all enemies X plus 25% or whatever. What you want to do in a meta ideal world is split your steroids between these two things, because they're on different ends of the battle formula and it results in a bigger number than if you just stacked it all on one side. So if you just have like 8 different steroids, like let's say shooting power boosted 25% on 8 parts, and that's all you had, you'd still do a very good amount of damage, absolutely. But if you took like 4 of them and turned them to all, enemy shooting power or shooting damage plus 25% or whatever, right? That would do more damage. Granted, it's not really a big deal. I'm not going to say negligible, because it's not negligible, but it's so small, it doesn't make that much of an impact when you get to a level where you're actually able to do that kind of stuff. With that in mind, you don't really have to worry about min-maxing this, because again, it is literally just a min-max thing. But just, so food for thought. It's good. I find the power restriction a little too much, only because that means you're forcing yourself into the triangle. You have to use a power suit with this. You can't have a suit that can change its attribute. You can't use a attribute neutral suit. You have to use power. And that could lead to some difficulties, but again, mileage may vary on this. The 25% all damage on a welfare is really, really good. So, high mobility for urban. Already talked about that combo. Statistically, pretty much the same as the knives. Meh. It's a weapon on a shot machine. All right, rifle. Melee damage raised 10%, enemy shooting power reduced 35. Okay. So again, translation quirk. This translates effectively to you take 10% more melee damage. The trade-off is the enemy loses 35% of their shooting power. The trade-off is very interesting here. You got to keep in mind a couple of things. One, you are hopefully fielding this against someone that is using shot. One, so you don't take as much damage if they happen to land a melee hit on you. And 2, if they do hit you with a shot attack, it does less damage. The problem that I've always had with these though, like if you stack enough of these, you can get 100% reduction, but you may have to go beyond that depending on what buffs the enemy has. And that's why I think that the all power reduction stuff is just hands down better, even if the numbers are lower, just because you don't have to worry about shooting and melee and EX and all these other things. You just all power. And that's obviously the brain dead take. But with this, it's only useful if you're playing against somebody that's using a shot-based machine. If you're playing someone that's using a melee machine, literally worthless, and you're just taking more damage. Most of the time, you're not going to know until you get hit either, unless you're someone that like cancels out mid-match or something to go back in and try it again. What that's worth. Yeah. It's okay. The 35% shooting power reduction is very, very strong, but yeah. Statistically, 3,600 shot attack. All right, that's sizable. Obviously, again, not the highest we've seen. We've seen it go above 4K, but respectably high. The word tags are a waste, though. High mobility and 4 urban. No thanks. All right, let's take a look at our long-range rifle, considering this is a shot machine through and through. Hopefully this rifle really rings home. What are we working with? When in urban category, you're not going to really have any control over this. Enemy shooting damage plus 25%. So that's not a... This is a lot like the EX skill 15%. 25% in a welfare vacuum is a very, very high modifier. However, because the requirement is you have to be on an urban category map for this to even activate, this should be like 35, 40, 45%, not 25. We have other welfares that boost your shooting damage 25% with way easier restrictions. This is so weird. Honestly, considering the trade-off of you have to be in an urban map for this, the number doesn't make sense. On its own, it's a really good value modifier, but we're not in a vacuum, and because of that, it's just kind of not great. I will respect they committed to the bit with 4 urban on this suit, considering what it is, but if you're gonna gimp a suit to chase thematics, at least it's a welfare, I guess. Statistically, 3600 again, okay. And then high mobility for urban. All right, none of the weapons are really anything to like write home about and free. Okay, we got one left. Up until this point, none of the weapons have been anything to write home about or freak out over, so. All right, and this is the exact opposite of the other weapon we saw, where instead of taking 10% more melee, you're taking 10% more shot, and it reduces their melee power instead of their shot. Because of the requirement of facing a certain type of enemy build, I don't really know how useful this ends up being when it restricts it so hard to a single type and you just get countered by the other type if, you know, they run in with it. Arguably, you could run both. Oh, can you? Was the other was a melee weapon, was it not? Or was it the beam rifle? I could have sworn it was the rifle. Yeah, so you can't even slot both of them. You have to pick one or the other. It's just not... Statistically and tag-wise, it's pretty much the same as the other weapons. Yeah. It's a very interesting thing that they decided to do with this suit, but... Once you kind of got out of the frame, it was really just mediocre. The weapons they're okay. Like, for a welfare, they're not bad. Definitely a good starting point for any new player. Really good numbers on them. Workable enough tags. But outside of, like, the frame, none of this is really, like, even long. Like, you're going to drop them really quick. Yeah, the beam saber is really the only exception. You are right, Alex. It's just the requirement of being the power attribute does kind of gimp it, in my opinion. But if you're using a power suit, 25% all damage up, yeah, that's solid. It's just you do have to be running a power suit for it. Overall, the camp for amazing, while not amazing, is definitely really good for a welfare. The frame parts alone are really good statistically. The weapons, not the most jaw-dropping, but you can definitely make something out of them. That's for sure. All right. Cool beans. Now, take a look at our gacha. No, we have a new... It's the Night Gundam, was it not? That we just got the new 7-star for? Yes, okay. And then we have Tiaria. So we're going to look at our pilot here. Did I look at the lightning strike last week? The lightning strike get an alteration. I don't remember looking at the lightning strike. No, there's no lightning strike. And okay, well, you know what then? Because the lightning strike doesn't have a 7-star, we'll take a look at that. We'll look at our pilot, and then we'll head over to the alteration and look at the knight. And then we'll pack it in. Oh, wait, no, wait. Lightning Strike does go to... I'm so confused. What's going... Oh. So you guys can see it really clearly through the stream, but the angle that my phone is at with my ring light, the 7-star tune-up was completely glared over for me. So I was like, where's the 7-star? Didn't see it. Because typically, right, look at where the 7-star tune-up is on the Night Gundam, right? It's like down here in the corner. But then for here, it's much smaller text up here. So I missed it. With that in mind, I'm still going to look at the Lightning Strike Gundam here. I'm just not going to look at the stats. To keep in mind, 7-star numbers are effectively manually tweaked. The best way to look at it is every time a new 7-star comes out, at least in the limited pool, it'll power creep everything that came before it. It's a very safe bet anyways. And when it comes to suits that, for example, the Lightning Strike are 7-starred but not limited, it's very safe to assume that they will just completely numerically outperform everything in the pool that is not Sokai 7-starred. So let's look at the Lightning Strike. We're going to ignore the stats and just look at everything else. Ooh, I do like the general aesthetic look. And again, I've always been a big fan of the Strike, so I think there's a little bit of bias in there. But it looks... Yeah, I really should have gone. Wrist is tired from all this chicken cutting. Okay, so I didn't think I'd see something like this on a non-limited non-Sokai part. So, Lightning Strike Gundam Head. The part trait. When attacking with physical, shooting power boosted by 50%. We have a lot of physical shot skills in this game. A lot of them are very devastating, very powerful. This boosts it further by 50%. That's crazy good. I have really no complaints on this. All right. Heavy armor Gundam type. Both of those are workable tertiary tags. Gundam type more so than heavy armor, do keep in mind. Gundam type does activate a ton of very powerful traits. Heavy armor, not so much. Both of them are relatively accessible. Definitely more Gundam type. And statistically, we don't really care. Overall, I really like that trait. It's one way to get people to roll on the new standard banners. Yeah, honestly, if you don't want to roll on the Sokai, but you want something that has really good numbers and good traits, look at it. This looks good. At least, you know, first part. Hopefully that comment doesn't come back to bite me as it gets worse down the line. While heavy armor squad recovers 900 armor gradually. Okay, so typically, one of the biggest complaints with this is how low the recovery is per tick. For example, this suit has, or this part has 3,200 armor. That means, however many these ticks are, you're looking at, what, 3 ticks? 3.5 ticks effectively. So 4 ticks for a full here for just this part. You have 8 parts. All of them, most of the time, will bring armor to your machine. With that in mind, this is going to take a long time to heal you up, let alone your squad. 9 armor though is still a lot higher than what we've seen in the past. I think the highest we've seen is like 1,000, and that was on like a recent limited. Problem is though, like one good hit will do way more damage than this could ever out heal before you get hit again. If you're someone that's playing early game, early mid game, this will help you a lot. But once you get past a certain point, nah. Hey, Mana, hour and I'm late. We were just at Lightning. Yeah. We had like a 20-minute opener and started talking about some other stuff. We just finished the campfire actually, so we going real slow today. Overall, the trait, not really that useful. It's good as far as heal gradually goes, especially considering it heals the squad. But overall, heavy armor, Gundam type. Alright, I already talked about that combination. Aesthetically, again, I like the way this looks. Alright, arms. The type 71, enhance armor, piercing rounds, B power, D pierce, fire enhanced armor piercing rounds from the detached railgun stowed on your arm. Cool beans, 11 magazine. As far as magazine go, like magazine EX skills, this seems very bog standard. You got your B power, 11 mag, move while you shoot. The only thing that really comes into play with these is, well, text-wise, it says it's a railgun. I'm going to assume a single projectile, as it's a railgun. However, typically we do have to be concerned about, when it comes to a magazine, how many things are fired per magazine round, how much is the damage split up, how fast are the projectiles, how far can the projectiles travel, and things like that, because that does actually matter quite a bit in terms of overall effective damage. If it's something like the head Vulcans that fire a bunch of shots, but they've stopped very close to your body, you know, no real travel time, you could dodge them if you kind of just strafed fast enough, those are kind of useless. But for example, the Strike Noir backpack, which fires 2 shots relatively quickly, and they go across the map, those are nice. As this is a railgun, I'm going to assume there's no real issue in that regard. Single shot, straightforward, just keeps going until it hits something. On paper, solid. In practice, really depends on the way the projectile works. Think of it like Noir mags, but on arms. Yeah, so that's good. It's always good when it's like I've never understood why some magazine skills don't go the distance. It just seems so weird to me. But anyway, all right. Solid EX skill on the arms then. Heavy armor support type. Ooh, I don't like that support type tag. Oh, what are you doing here? No, I don't like that support type tag. Heavy armor, still a workable tertiary. Support type scares me. All right, the Lightning Strike Gundam Legs. Armor Schneider. Yeah, no. We've seen this anime. Yes, we have seen this animation before. No, not happening. Even though, on paper, A+ Pierce, B power, low cooldown sounds very, very good. Easy to whiff, easy to dodge, and yeah, I don't really think I need to go much further than that. Yeah. Reminder, open the Twitter. Oh, do they have anime? I guess they would have it for the Lightning Strike, wouldn't they? I haven't done a actual like base gacha suit in so long. I forgot that they do the Twitter videos for them. Give me a second here. I'm gonna be looking at the Night Gundam later, so I should open that. Where's old Lightning Boy? Lightning? Yes. Yeah. So let's rewind this and watch from the top while I sit here and enjoy my chicken. Hold on a second here. Okay, so The Armor Schneider animation is effectively what I was concerned about. As soon as you use it, locked into the animation, it looks very easy to whiff. Spacing is definitely going to be an issue. It's going to be a dodge. I don't care about how good the numbers look, like A plus B. Nah, dodge. Heavy armor Gundam type. Okay, workable tertiaries there. Nice. Let's move on to that backpack EX skill. I have a couple of things that I'm interested with. Okay, yeah, that was my question, Mana. Thank you for answering it, actually. So my thing with the backpack when I was originally watching it, right, because they fire 1 shot, 2 shot, and 3 shot, but they only kill 1 target with this. My first concern was, does it automatically lock onto a new target, or will it just keep shooting at the corpse of whoever you had locked onto until it's over? As Mana answered, it retargets. That's really good. That does add a little bit of value to this. He also said no iframes, which also is not great. When you're fighting against multiple enemies, there's a very high chance that when you stop moving, one of them somewhere is going to open a shot at you. When you're doing an EX skill like this that has a relatively long activation period, this one runs for what? This is like 7 or 8 seconds? You don't get control until 28. It starts at 32. So it has 4 seconds of runtime. And I don't know if the actual building your weapon thing counts as the beginning. Because, yeah. Seems not, because that suit didn't move at all. So I'm going to assume this entire opening thing is locked in. But then the rest of this, the next 4 seconds, you're at the mercy of everyone on the map. The downside to this is, well, if you get hit, you get knocked out of the animation, you waste your whole thing. Is what it is. The shots are very slow and spaced out, meaning if your AI used this against a player, they could just block the first shot or dodge it and then just shoot you out of the animation, making it worthless. There's a lot of issues, honestly, with this. On paper, looks really fun. You just fire 4 really neat railgun blasts. You get a 39% shot attack steroid that applies before you actually start shooting. Honestly, in terms of pure on paper, looks really solid. But unfortunately, due to the lack of iframes and how easy it is to get knocked out of this, it really reduces the overall value. You could definitely use this against AIs. You may still get knocked out of it here and there, but if this ever got used in an arena match, you would get punished so hard for this. Steroid's good, animation's okay, but the spacing's just too long, I think. Okay, heavy armor, support type again. And lastly, the Armor Schneider daggers. IRC, you have super armor, so you must take attacks that knock you down. I don't know about that one, because when I've used EX skills in the past, granted, it's been a long time, and they were early EX skills in that vein, pretty much anything would knock you out of it outside of like Vulcans. You got hit with a beam, like a beam rifle that would stagger you normally, that would break you out of an EX animation. If you got hit by, obviously, an explosion, that would do the same thing. So, I don't know. I'm pretty sure staggers break you out of EX animations. So, but regardless, the fact you can get knocked out of this is kind of regular melee attacks, no heavy attack. Well, yeah, regular melee attacks won't knock you down, but they should, on paper, stagger you. So when you get hit, you'll still flinch. The powerful one is the one that actually knocks you down. If you have super armor, it doesn't matter. You'll ignore the knockdown still. That's the point of super armor. You don't flinch, you don't get knocked down unless something pierces your super armor. The stagger percentage still applies. Don't know what that means, but you guys can have a conversation on that. Long and short, I'm looking at this animation, easy to dodge, easy to get hit by something that can interrupt you, and the spacing in between your attacks is just huge. Those are all demerits. On paper, looks really good. I just think in practice, not great. When armor is 70% or less, enemy all damage plus 40%. So that enemy all damage plus 40% is really good. Like, that is a powerful modifier. But because you need to have 70% or less armor, that means you got to take a little bit of a beating. Yeah, before we'd be able to cheese this with going over cost and spawning with base 70% armor. But with that gone now, you do actually have to take time to take damage to get that 40% all damage boost. Honestly, for most content, like, once you get up to a high enough like level of play, you don't want to be wasting time taking damage instead of just clearing the content. When you're still new to the game though, this might be worth it because you will take little hits here and there, little clips, and getting a 40% all damage steroid once you take enough hits, that's significant. That's significant. The chance to recoil off animation that doesn't have 5 frames arm. Well, I figure that's what it was, but I mean, like, actual numbers behind it. But yeah. Anyways, interesting daggers. Overall, the Lightning Strike is a very interesting suit. I don't really see any hard strengths with it. It kind of seems to be kind of going for that definitely shot oriented. But I don't know. It's just like, it's just weird. The Magazine EX skill is really good. Beyond that, the Armor Schneider and the backpack, I think, are kind of whiffs. Some of the traits are really nice on it. It's interesting. For a non-limited suit, all right. Something I might even look at using my pick tickets for, grabbing. That's a thing. Oops, accidentally left the gacha screen. Probably get back to that. All right, and let's look at Tiaria. See what his mug's got to say. Oh no, 3-star pilot, eh? Okay. So he is an infighter. What are we looking at numbers wise? When melee defense is under 35,000, all enemy cooldown time up 23%. So this requires you to have a relatively low defense, and the enemy gets a huge cooldown time up boost. 23%, nothing to sneeze at. That is a big number. The problem is the defense under 35k. For early on, this will be really nice. For support suits that perhaps don't have a ton of defense, pretty good. But unfortunately, most people, once you get to a certain point, you're going to be way past that kind of defense value. This is going to not be the best. 35,000. Yeah, okay. Yeah. 35,000 is a relatively high number, actually, now that I think about it, for defense. That's not too bad. But once you get up, again, like I said, once you get up to a certain point, you'll be past that, and you're not going to get the boost anymore. But until then, 23% up cooldown time is pretty good. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to feel about this one. It's not like, you know, oh yeah, really, really good. It's not, it's in the middle. Not in the middle, not exactly. Probably on the higher end in the middle-ish area. Very interesting. Interesting. Now let's look at your numbers to go with that infighter license. What do you actually bring to the table here? So you got like 1,300 or so shot attack, kind of around there. Maybe a little less. And then for melee, it's like 2,700 or so. Interesting. So he definitely goes really high up on the melee attack, doesn't break 3k. As far as shot goes, more of a token value than it. Gundam type for computers. The Gundam type's a nice tag, workable. I don't like the 4 computers. He's interesting. Would have been good if he was a shot pilot. Yeah, or if that was when shot defense is under 3,500. But like, you're using an infighter pilot, which is going to be on a melee suit, which typically will have decent melee defense on it. It's interesting. It's an interesting distribution. Overall, an okay pilot, not like jaw-droppingly amazing or anything. I don't know if I would use tickets on him unless you're a real Tiaria fan. Yeah. Pilot. Not the worst we've seen. Not the best by far. medium high somewhere, yeah. Could put him. Alright. Since when is Tiaria a melee pilot? Now, since GBM decided so. Deal with it. All right. Take a look at the Night Gundam animation, see what's going on. I hate that skill so much. Okay, for an SD Gundam, that was a little over the top. Okay. Well, let's go over these parts. Yeah. So, for everyone that played this game earlier, much earlier in its lifespan, you'll remember that map where you had to fight a bunch of SD Gundams, and pretty much all they did was just run at you, and getting hit by them was more or less instant death. Those were good times. Those were good times. I hate this skill so much. I hate it just so much. Alright. I'm not quite sure how to feel about this one, because like it obviously requires you to be relatively close to your opponent for it to actually like hit them and start the combo and do anything. And then at the end you follow up with lightning. But my question with this is the lightning based on your spacing, like from where you are to where the lightning hits, is that guaranteed and that's why that last thrust pushes them so far? Or does that lightning automatically just drop down on whoever you have targeted? Because in the scenario that it just drops down on whoever you're targeting, this could be a very interesting 1-2 where you use it close to one enemy, kill them, and then the lightning strikes an enemy across the map or something. But something tells me it's based on spacing. Unfortunately, I don't have the part to lab it and test it. But overall, because of how close you have to get to your enemy, it's something that's pretty easy to whiff. Again, spacing issues. The enemy could effectively dodge depending on the reaction time, blocking, or whatever. It looks neat. The viability of it's just kind of not... I'm not really feeling it. All right, let's look at the sword. Now, see, this one was really cool. I liked this. So this is just you swing the sword, a beam comes out, and it just goes flying across the map, and that's just straightforward, simplistic. I like that a lot. I like that quite a bit. And then for the legs, this one is just a crazy long animation, way beyond what you'd expect from an SD Gundam. I'm looking forward to actually reading into it a little more. So with that in mind, let's start from the top here and work towards looking at the Night Gundam. The animation walking away. Yeah, like I said, it was just so extra for an SD Gundam, you know? It's like, he does all this stuff, stab, hits the ground, massive explosion, and then cool guys, you know, just walking out of it. It's like, all right. A little over the top there, buddy. You're like 2'3". Calm down. All right. So let's take a look at the Night Gundam head. With Saber category equipped, enemy melee damage plus 50%. All right. So we have a lot of saber category weapons in this game, especially ones that are very powerful. So with that in mind, okay. And the enemy's getting that 50% damage up for melee. All right. When buffed, buff EX skill effect up. Oh, excuse me. 35%. The way that this game works, flat addition when it comes to this kind of buff percentages, meaning if your buff was a 10% buff to something, you would just add 35%, making it 45%. With that in mind, 35% is one of the higher effect ups that we have in this game, if not like the highest. Maybe it goes higher than that, maybe like 1 or 2 parts. But that's really good. That's a really good number. And yeah, paired with the first trait, honestly, if you're using an EX skill that buffs you before you do any kind of damage, and it happens to be a melee skill, and you have a saber equipped, you're gonna be doing a lot of damage. Typically, I have a lot of issue with the way that the second trait is when the first trait's bad or doesn't really work with the second trait. But this works, I think, kind of well together. You just obviously need to have something that buffs you first. I appreciate the effort that was put into it. Yeah. No, the animation is over the top in a goofy way, not like a, oh, you know, they tried too hard, but like a, wow, they really did it. All right, close combat, pro tag, word tags. Those are very, very standard for melee builds, especially pro tag being one of the 2 core tags for it. Close combat is the most common tertiary tag for melee parts in this game, I swear to God. Yeah, activates innumerable amounts of traits available on myriad amounts of parts. You'll have no issues. Okay, torso. All right. Oh, by the way, guys, because I know that some of you were mentioning it last stream, the microphone, does it sound any better, or do I still sound like an old radio show host? Kind of important, because I can't really hear myself well when I'm doing my streams, and I can't really have my headphones on and listening to myself as feedback when I'm trying to do this stuff, because it becomes very, very difficult to talk while listening to yourself talk at the same time. Like, very difficult. So, let me know. All right, the SD tackle. So, as someone said in chat, it's always more threatening in the hands of the enemy than yourself. That's very true. B plus pierce, B power, low cooldown, and you reduce their melee and shot attack by 29%. So, the issue with this skill, SD Gundams are already a very small target. Like, ridiculously small. You can see right there. Right? You got a guy that's like lower than your waist charging you down. With that in mind, when they activate the skill and start running at you, it can be very difficult to interrupt them in any way, shape, or form, because you go to attack them, and let's say you're using a shot weapon. You're firing at their current position, but you're angled slightly downwards. Problem is, they're dashing so fast towards you, by the time your bullet gets to where they were, it's sailing through the air. It can be it's like fighting Yoda or very small characters in fighting games. Why are you a goblin in the goddamn background? Anyways, when the enemy uses it, it is nigh impossible to interrupt them. They will always hit you, and it will always do way more damage than you would expect. When you use it, very easy to whiff, never seems to go just far enough to hit them, and man, they just always interrupt you. It's an interesting EX skill. Yeah. No, it's... The problem with the SD tackle really boils down to when it's used against you, it's very unfair because the enemy seems to be almost impossible to interrupt, dodge, or stop. And then when you use it, it's just like the most useless thing ever, never goes far enough, never hits hard enough, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's very weird. On paper, good. In practice, he's a regular guest on your streams. Yeah, he just shows up, except he does something different every time. This time he did like a weird goblin orc walk back out of the room. Yeah. He's a character. All right. Knight Gundam. When melee defense is over 15,000, which is very easy to do, you will find yourself over 15k melee defense pretty quickly. Enemy EX skill penetration reduced by 80%. So that's an interesting one. 80% is a very large amount of pen reduction. The problem is this really relies on your enemy stacking into pen. The current meta, as it were, is stacking power and damage, not pen. So with that in mind, you'd be reducing any naturally high pen EX skills, but considering most people are just stacking tons and tons of damage, whether you're reducing the pen or not, it won't really matter. It's like, yeah, you may have gone from a sandbag to a concrete block, but you know, they're throwing like the entire Eiffel Tower's worth of metal at you. It doesn't really matter if you're a sandbag or a cinder block, it's gonna crush you and turn you into dust anyways, right? It's kind of the issue. So while on paper, really good if you know your opponent has a lot of EX skill pen and just high pierce skills, it just won't really go far if they just decided, nah, I'm just going to stack damage all the way through, which is kind of the go-to. While Pro Tag initial EX skill charge boosted by 30%. Pro Tag super easy to get. It's on so many parts. The initial EX skill charge boost at 30% is extremely high. Keep in mind though, this does only count for the obvious initial cooldown, not any subsequent ones. So when you spawn in and you got that first batch of cooldown coming off for your skills, that's the only thing affected by this. Once you've used your EX skill, it goes into a normal cooldown cycle. So this is only good for your first burst effectively. After that, you're not going to get any bonuses from this. Enemy doesn't misjudge their distance. Yeah, I swear there's like an AI version of the SD tackle that just goes until it hits the enemy. I swear. All right, Knight Gundam arms. When melee defense is over... Oh yeah, no, we've already done this. Don't mind me. Clearly there was something in my Diet Coke. Close combat, pro tag, tags, good combo. All right. Overall, not a bad pair of arms. I'm just not sure about that first trait, honestly. All right, let's take a look at the Knight Gundam legs. 3 Sacred Treasure. Triple S. Really? Okay. In case anyone wanted to know, I'll have the animation playing here so you can enjoy it. So, Triple S power. Fucking ridiculous. Raise melee attack of your squad by 39%, heal 38% of your armor, melee and shot defense raised by 19%, beam and physical resist boosted by 29%, and erase all debuffs on all Gunplas. So you remember where I was saying earlier about it'd be really like that whole buff plus 35% thing? Pair it with this and just add 35% to every single one of these values. That'd be 74% melee attack up. That would be what, 44, or no, not 44, 54% shot defense, 64 physical resist, beam resist, like crazy values on this, along with a huge power output, debuffs all gone. Yeah, no, crazy. Yep, that does explain the animation length. It's absolutely bonkers with the amount of buffs it hands out and everything. Yeah, the walking away is actually deserved. This is a crazy EX skill, definitely the big shining piece of this one. I can guarantee you that it's going to be power crept with something that comes on anniversary. But as far as it goes, I think this is probably the craziest part in the game right now, just in terms of what it does. The only way I think it could be better is if it also reduced all your skill cooldowns by like 30% or something, but I think that would be too much. Anyways, absolutely bonkers. Close combat, pro tag, word tags. All right. Let's take a look at the backpack. It's missing shot attack, which is, I think, fine because when you think about it, this is definitely more a melee-centric suit than it is a shot suit. So just boosting melee attack, I think, is acceptable for that. For party support, yeah. Melee is in a good spot now, though. So the Banshee Norm's Beam Magnum has 240% buff EX skill effect ups. Yep, that is true, Alex. That is true. You could do some really silly stuff with that backpack and certain buff up parts. Really silly stuff. All right, Super Electro Spear. In case you forgot, I believe it was this one here. So this is where you do a bunch of stab, 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 and then lightning bolt. And as I mentioned, I just have some kind of holdouts with this. I'm not quite sure, how it works exactly. So unleash a barrage and follow with lightning attack. Excuse me. On paper, A- power, D pierce, low cooldown. Sounds really good, but it does boil down to a few things. Does the lightning spawn at a set distance? Does it actually spawn on top of whoever you currently have locked on? I think that'll add a little bit of viability to this as to whether or not you can use it on multiple enemies or if it's single target only. But regardless, because you do have to get very close, it seems to be relatively easy to whiff and other things. I don't really think it's great viability-wise. IRC, it lands on your target. Yeah. Knight's Electro Spear, Lightning Bolt to shot. So it opens with a bunch of melee stabs and then a Lightning Bolt, which is shot damage based. That's really weird. So it's definitely more of a mook clearing thing then. The spear pokes will do good damage against a suit if you're a melee. The Lightning Bolt being shot focused though is kind of sus. Overall, I'd still put this as kind of like meh. The part that's easy to whiff and, kind of easy to get out of, dodge, all those things, is melee centric. And then the part that seems the hardest to dodge is shot centric, which you're not going to be using, you're not going to have high stats for if you're running a melee machine. Your choices. Close combat, heavy armor. Okay. All right. The Knight Sword. This is the one that has that really neat beam swing going on with it. Now let's see. Torso. There it is. This is the one that I like, where it just kind of throws a beam out. Very straightforward. It's effectively a yeet. A- power, D pierce, low cooldown. Yeah. Cool. I don't really have too much to say about this. Nice. I know someone who uses this in the shop build for the range. Hey, power to him. I just think it's a weird choice. All right, Electro Spear. While close combat, buff EX skill effect up 40%. Okay. Shot attack down 30%, which is fine because you're probably going to use this on a melee suit considering close combat. Enemy melee damage plus 40%. That's a really good trade-off. You're doing a lot less shot damage, but a lot more melee damage, and you're getting 40% buff EX skill effect up. Good combination. I do wish that first trait was either something more offensive-oriented, like the second trait, or the second trait was more like the first trait and giving a further buff effect up, considering the backpack. But the combination is still okay, for sure. And lastly, our Knight Shield. While heavy armor, buff EX skill effect up 40%, and while heavy armor, buff EX skill effect up 40%. If you're heavy armor, 80% buff EX skill effect up. Use this with the backpack. You're laughing all the way to the bank in terms of just numbered additions onto your stuff. That's like over 100% melee attack boost for your entire squad. The Knight Shield is very good for buff. I don't know if I would use this, like if you're going for like just the Knight Gundam stuff, yeah, you could. But in terms of other parts that are available, you can probably find more stuff that gives double buff effects like this for other slots. That way you could really just go ridiculously high and cash in on the backpack. Yeah. Overall, the Knight Gundam is a little bit on the ridiculous side, to be kind of expected. From what I understand, the Knight Gundam's kind of one of those favorite SD Gundams overseas. It does also help that it is a Sokai Limited. It's got its alteration, 7-star. It kind of comes in that lull period just before, yeah, we're like, what, a week out from Valentine's Day. So kind of milk some users of their money, a high value suit. It's been a while since we saw the Night Gundam, so. All right, overall, yeah, packs a lot of heat. That's pretty much the way to put it. For someone that small, you're sure packing heat there, buddy. All right. So with that, guys, I am done covering all of the new GBM content. Pretty sure anyways. Been awesome fun discussing it all. I'm glad I got to kind of troubleshoot some of my new hardware stuff. I don't have 6 more alts. You're lying. There's no more alts. I refuse to believe you. I utterly refuse. All of these are old. No. I went off Bamco's wild ride sometimes, you know? But okay. I'll play your game. So I'm assuming it's the Extreme Gundam up to the high mobility there, huh? Okay. Well, I guess let's start cracking. Ugh. All right, Extreme Gundam. Now, for anyone that hasn't been here for the old alteration talks, I don't really look at the stats. I'm not really going to look at the word tags. I'm just going to look at the EX skill / part trait for these. Yeah, most of these suits have been in the game for a hot minute now. So it's just adding a new tweak to the EX skill or traits. Okay. The Extreme Gundam Eclipse FEXVS 10th Anniversary Color. Extreme Burst. Okay, so 20% speed boost, 49% shot attack boost. It's just a super high awakening steroid for shot attack. All right, nothing new for the tier of suit that it is. Okay, because I'm pretty sure this is in the 4-star pick ticket pool. I'm also a big fan of the general aesthetics of this one here. All right, let's look at the torso. While high firepower, shooting power boosted by 30%. Okay, high firepower, easy to get your hands on. Shooting power boosted 30%. Nice, considering the age of the suit. With technique attribute, EX skill cooldown reduced by 30%. All right. So pretty much the same issue I have with this as I do with most attribute locked traits. It sucks that you have to use this on a technique attribute suit, but if you can live with that, the 20% EX skill cooldown reduction is very hefty, and the shooting power boost for high firepower is very solid as well. Good stuff. All right, arms. Carnage Striker and Eclipse Cluster, A+ Pierce, B+ Power, fire a massive energy from your shoulders, and a myriad of small missiles. So it's kind of like a DACA, effectively. Cool. Purely numbers-wise, looks really good. If I remember the animation, this is actually pretty solid as well, so no real complaints there. Legs, single warhead missile. Fire missiles from the launchers on your waist, A- Power, D Pierce. So this isn't, if these are homing missiles, okay. If these are not homing missiles and instead are just like dumbfire missiles that go in a straight line, kind of not great. Kind of depends on that. Missiles are shot in an arc, the beam is straight, the Army X. Yeah, I can't remember all the animations for this suit. We still really need that inline animation viewer. Yeah. God, if I remember all these animations anymore. Back is Jirobi. You say that like I'm supposed to remember what it means after like 4 months of not seeing the word. All right, the Exa Full Burst Backpack, A+ Pierce, B+ Power, shot attack up 39%, 20% speed up. Yeah, so this is just shoot a whole bunch of stuff really quickly. A DACA dump. All right. And the beam rifles. Yeah, without the animations, unfortunately, I can't really make heads or tails of a lot of this stuff because it's not very descriptive on what the actual EX skills do. Overall, though, they should mostly be fine. I remember the suit being okay at least when it came out originally. So, all right, and the variable psycho rifle weapons here. When armor is 60% or more, job gauge increase boosted by 17%. Surprisingly, the first time we've seen job gauge increase this entire stream. I don't like the job gauge in its current iteration. I think it could be a lot better. The effects that you get from actually maxing your job gauge and activating it could be way stronger than they currently are. However, if you find that your build works really well with the job gauge, or you like the system, power to you. You do whatever you want. Don't let me tell you how to play a video game. Terrible idea. But to me, this is kind of a waste of a trait slot. And after 15 seconds pass, shooting damage output boosted by a flat 800, which late game is absolutely worthless, but early game, considerable. 800 damage is quite a bit early on. All right, Reganlay's Julia. The guns are the only bad alts, pretty much. All right. Reganlay's Julia Head. While close combat, EX skill power boosted by 30%. Okay. Close combat, very common on like every melee machine ever in the history of ever. So, okay. EX skill power boost, good. While high mobility, enemy EX skill damage plus 35%. The only issue that I have with the activation here is that this wants you to have both close combat and high mobility. While these are thematically definitely on point for this machine, it means that you're throwing away one of your primary tags, because for melee suits, you have your pro tag and mobile fighter. Both of these boost your melee attack by 10% by having them activated, as well as potentially traits, because those tags definitely activate a lot of traits through the different parts in this game. With that in mind, you'd be taking away one of those 10% modifiers for high mobility or close combat, which instead of 5% boosts it, or sorry, instead of 10% boosts it by only 5%, and you're getting, although it sounds nice, an EX skill power boost. That 5% of your primary stat, while early on may not be a lot, later on could be thousands and thousands and thousands of stat points. So yeah. And it has close combat, high mobility tags. As far as thematics go, definitely on point. In terms of like game viability though, it's kind of double dipping in a bad way. All right, Reganlay's Julia Torso. With power attribute, enemy EX skill power reduced by 30%. Okay, that's straightforward enough. Yeah, I don't think that's a very good trait overall. As I said before, it's... Oh, thanks for the sub, Ash. As I was saying before, it's better to have the... like all power reduction than it is melee, shooting, EX, whatever, just because there's so many different things that can hurt you these days. Specializing it down means that if you get hit by anything else, you're just taking a lot of damage and you're not really getting a lot of benefits to yourself by filling up your slots with all these reductions. And in fighter job, enemy melee power reduced by 45%. So if you have an infighter job and you're running power attribute, you're getting 30% enemy EX skill power down and enemy melee power, 45% down. Individually, very, very good numbers and stuff, but like I said, in practice, you're just using a lot of trait slots to try to reduce damage from all these different sources. I just don't think it's worth it. Unless it's one of those crazy, like, 90% physical resist or something. Or, physical defense. Again, like the phase shift stuff that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Those were nuts. Okay. Arms. The Julian Sword. A pierce, B plus power. Turn your blades into whips and attack your enemy. Short cooldown. I'd have to see the animation on this, but like all melee EX skills that aren't bindable, really boils down to, do you have a charge animation? How easy is it to whiff? Is there a setup space? So do you have to be a certain distance away for this to even start doing anything? All these other factors. On paper, sounds really good. In practice, really boils down to the animation. Legs. Whirlwind Kick. A minus pierce, B plus power, low cooldown. Unleash a whirlwind using the sharp edges of your legs. Literally what I just said about the previous part. On paper, sounds good. In practice, really comes down to the animation. How easy is it to whiff? How much setup space do you need? All these other factors. And lastly, the backpack. Physical ranged weapon magazine boosted by 25%. So this is your ranged weapon slot. So your beam rifle, your bazooka, your SMG, whatever. If it is using a physical ammo type, which aren't terribly uncommon, you'll find a lot more of them in the IBO universe weapons than anything else. You get a 25% magazine boost. I don't think it's really worth it. Typically your magazine will have anywhere from like maybe 6 to 10 shots. 25% more could be anywhere from like maybe 1, 2 more shots, maybe 3. Honestly, it's just not really worth it. When attacking with physical, melee power boosted by 40%. Now see, that's nice. Any physical is a 40% melee power boost. The problem is though, right? With the first trait, you're probably running this on a melee suit. So you're not really going to be using your ranged weapon, if at all. With the second trait, it's really good, but it's paired with the first trait, which heavily gimps a lot of its outgoing value. It's okay. It's a very powerful second trait, but I feel like it really just lost a ton of value because of that first trait dragging it down into the mud. All right, let's look at the Delta Chi starting from the head. Head-mounted Vulcan, goodbye, going on to the torso. Nitro system. All right, 20% speed boost, 59% shot attack boost, 5% shot defense boost, and vernier capacity 25%. So the shot attack boost is ridiculous, going up to 59% on a non-limited non-Sokai suit. That's crazy high. Of course, it's only for you, not for your squad, but still a very, very big boost. You're getting... excuse me. You're getting a token 5% shot defense boost. Whoop-de-doo. And the vernier capacity. Interesting. The debuff was 30% previously. Yeah, so they removed a lot of the demerits when it came to this backpack. And yeah, man, and when you're talking about the when debuff self-trigger stuff, again, this is one of those very rare scenarios where, yeah, you could actually make it work with this. But it does require you to have this torso, requires you to not have another awakening that you're already using for whatever other feature or function. So there are some caveats to it. Yeah. Overall, it's a very, very powerful self-steroid. Outside of that, though, obviously it's very selfish. But your support suits really aren't there to do damage. They're there to use skills, so... Okay, that's a fair trade. Nice. Arms. And actually, before I go into that real quick, I just need to start another Grand Blue raid. Give me a moment. Kind of woke up really late today, which slowed down a bunch of the stuff I wanted to do, one of them being finishing all my Grand Blue raids, because for whatever cursed reason the developers decided, hey, let's just put the Sands of Eternity into all of these raids, and they made us need like 60 of them. Okay. I love the backpack, 2 funnels, but they're shotgun funnels. That sounds fun. All right. Arms. When armor is 80% or less, reduce cooldown by 50% once. So this is kind of, if you manage to take a couple of hits, take a little bit of damage, most of your stuff's just going to come off cooldown. You can blast away as retaliation. However, like I mentioned previously, this does require you actually taking damage for this to, kick in and start doing stuff. And typically you don't want to be taking damage if you can avoid it. And while Federation, initial EX skill charge boosted by 25%. Already talked about initial EX skill charge. Federation, not a terribly uncommon tag, not a terribly common one, kind of in that weird limbo in the middle of like, yeah, it's there. Not everywhere, but it's there enough. Oh man, you guys are lucky you couldn't hear that. Holy crap, I just cracked like 7 things in my back. Whew. All right. Overall, Lots of the cooldown reduction stuff. Initial EX on the alteration, base cooldown in the initial. Interesting combination. I don't like that you have to take damage for that first trait to activate, but the second trait's quite nice. Federation, good enough tertiary. Not the best, but workable. Legs. With long rifle category equipped, long shot attack raised by 20%. This is referring to the distance between you and your enemy. You can tell how far you are from your opponent based on the reticle that you have when locking on. There's technically four different reticles, one for close, one for medium, one for long, and then one for you're just not in range at all. The amount of damage that you do with your equipped long range weapon is based on the type it is and your distance. So SMGs, close range bonus. Beam rifles, mid-range bonus. Sniper rifles, long-range bonus. Shocking. With that in mind, long shot attack raised 20% with a long rifle just means if you're using a long rifle, sniper rifle, whatever, and you're at the long shot attack range bracket, 20% bonus to your neutrals. I don't think it's really worth it. You kind of stop using neutrals at one point anyways, so... And with long rifle category equipped, shooting power boosted by 35%. That's a very healthy number, all things considered. Long rifles are a dime a dozen, especially in the high power category. Shooting power boosted 35%, very good. The one issue I have, clearly the first trait, I just don't think it's like that amazing. If you are someone that uses their neutral attacks a lot though, 20% can be hefty, and that's a full 5th bonus. Yeah, I just think if it was a higher modifier, maybe it'd be a little nicer. But, alright, that's okay. Alright, backpack. Proto Fin Funnels. D Pierce A- power. Am I going to talk about beam funnels? Alright, long and short with beam funnels in this game, they're just not as good as their melee counterparts. Very simply, the more funnels that your character is able, or I guess your part is able to deploy, the more damage you do, because beam focused funnels all fire at set intervals. So with that in mind, you launch them out, they hover a little bit, aim, all shoot, fly around, aim, all shoot, and after a few of these, they come back to you. You do more damage if you have more bits out. It's really silly. Melee funnels do not abide by this. They just do ridiculously high damage because they have the melee modifier on them. They just rip through. They just do tons of damage. And it doesn't matter whether it's 1 funnel, 2 funnel, 5 funnels. It will just obliterate things. Shot funnels are much more finicky. If you use the new Verka that only has like, what, 4 or 6 funnels or something, you're going to do way less damage than a Kshatriya that has like 14, 16 funnels coming out. Right, and unfortunately I don't think this one has a ton of funnels on it, but yeah, I guess it also depends on the projectile. Someone said that these are like shotguns, so potentially all the projectiles do damage, which means good match output. But as a more or less standardized rule when it comes to beam funnels in GBM, the more funnels, the more damage. And funnel uptime extension stuff sounds really good on paper, but when you think about it, why would you want to spend 45 seconds doing the same amount of damage you could do in 3 seconds? So, yeah. All right. The long range gun here. When buffed, EX skill power boosted 30%. Buffs are very, very easy to get in this, so no problem there. And cooldown time up 15%, so you're getting 15% CDR increase. Buff EX skill effect up 30%. So you're getting a lot more buff out of your buffs, and when you're buffed, your EX skill power gets boosted further. That's a very interesting symbiotic relationship that these 2 traits have going on here. The only real bad trade-off is obviously the cooldown time increase. That's not great, but considering you can go above 100% CDR, meaning this 15% can actually be nullified and made worthless, makes it much more okay. Very interesting. I like that combination. All right, now we're on to our last 3 new alterations, thank God. We'll start with the DJ. DJ? All right, start with the head. When one enemy's shot down, reduce cooldown by 40% once. So that's very straightforward. You shoot down one enemy, cooldown's down 40%. But this does make it useless in any content that does not have more than one enemy, for the obvious reasons of you need to shoot an enemy down for any of this to actually do anything. So if you're doing any 1v1 arenas, if you're doing certain multi-missions that only have one enemy, the boss, and any other content where you only fight one enemy, you'll never experience this CDR, which heavily reduces the value of it, because that's a very good first trait if you're fighting more than one enemy and have very high cooldowns. With speed attribute, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. So EX skill cooldown 20%, that's good. That's one of the highest mods we can ask for. That in mind, the speed attribute, much like I said with the technique and power, it just locks you into the triangle. Means you can't use this with any other type of suit, which, it's fine, you do you. I personally don't like it when it locks me in, because it means I can't change the typing of my suit or anything, or kind of play mix and match with parts. I have to play within a very predefined sandbox, as it were. All right, let's look at the arms. When armor is 60% or more, shot guidance boosted by 14%. So what it means by shot guidance is whenever you use a ranged neutral attack on your enemy, or even some EX skills, it has slight homing applied to it. If you go and watch one of the first videos I ever did on GBM, where I talk about it and a lot of the mechanics, I do actually show off a really good example of shot guidance from another Gundam game that this was actually, to my understanding, based on. At least the combat system of it was. So when you shoot your weapon at somebody and the projectile's flying at them, it does have a little bit of course correction applied if they start strafing left or right to help whoever fired the projectile. This increases it by 14%, which is very small, all considered. Yeah. All right, the second trait, when attacking with beam, all power boosts by 35%. We have a absolute ton of beam EX skills in this game, whether it's physical, whether it's shot, and because it's an all power boost, it doesn't actually matter, meaning this second trait is build agnostic. Whether you're doing a melee build, whether you're doing a shot build, as long as you're using a beam type EX skill, which plentiful on both sides, you're getting a 35% all power. The first trait does unfortunately kind of gimp a lot of that because of its shot guidance boost not really being great on its own and kind of taking a slot, and obviously only being shot bonus centric. But that second trait's really good, I think. Don't know if it's worth, investing into the whole part just for the one trait, but you do you. Legs. Twin Blade Slash. D Pierce, A- power, and you unleash a barrage. Pretty sure this is going to be one of those animations, easy to dodge, easy to whiff. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm not wrong, that's just not great. Just not great. Backpack. With Twin Blade category equipped, close shot attack raised 14%. Already talked about that. Outfighter job, enemy all damage plus 30%. Outfighter is very, very common, easy to get your hands on, and you get a 30% enemy all damage boost. Sizable. Don't like that first trait at all. A lot like the, previous part effectively. Just second trait's good. Don't know if it's worth investing for just that though. All right, the Beam Naginata. When attacking with beam, job gauge increase boosted by 13%. Okay, I've talked about the job gauge before, so to me this is kind of useless. While for Tundra, all damage output boosted by flat 800. So for Tundra, this is talking about the... excuse me. This is talking about the word tag for Tundra. You can actually see it there on the word tag list. The all damage output up by 800, flat number. Not great for like late game. Early game though, nice. Everything is getting your boost as long as you're for Tundra. So maybe. Don't like that first trait though. Oh, did I skip the Delta Kai shield? No way. It's terrible. Let's go back and take a look at it. So I did. Damn. All right, we'll take a quick peek at this and then go back to the DJ. All right, the High Mega Cannon from the Delta Kai shield. A Pierce, B+ power, you fire a beam. I don't really have any complaints about this. I don't really know why I went back to look at it. Honestly, it's just a, you know, one and done, fire your load kind of thing. Shoot your shot. All right, the beam rifle for the DJ. With twin blade category equipped, special shot power boosted by 25%. Special shot is referring to when you hold down the neutral attack button on a neutral weapon, your ranged weapon. If you are using a long shooter job license, you'll do a kind of lean back wing Gundam pose and just fire a big blast with a beam rifle specifically. I guess I should say it's weapon based, not job license based. But anyways, like bazookas, you'll charge a shot, fire it, hits the ground, explodes, does more damage than normal, knock back the whole 9 yards. If you're using a sniper rifle, I don't actually know if the sniper rifle has one. Probably does. Anyways, I know beam rifles, the wing Gundam, lean back, fire the big blast. Anyways, that's what it's referring to. Only able to use this as a long shooter or a mid shooter job license. You can't use it as anything else. And you need to have a twin blade category equipped. Honestly, I don't think it's really worth it. The special shot's not really that used. It's easy enough to whiff them. You could just be using an EX skill instead and doing way more damage. The list goes on. With twin blade category equipped, enemy all power reduced by 30%. So this is kind of a double whammy. If you have a twin blade category equipped, special shot boost, enemy all power reduced. On paper, sounds really, interesting, but I don't like the combination at all. Special shot's kind of a waste to begin with. And then the all power reduction, although I do prefer all power versus splitting it up. Like I've said, that first trait really just negates any overall viable use for this. You can slap it on a support suit if you need to for that all power reduction, but keep in mind it'll only affect the suit that this is equipped onto, nothing else. So, yeah. All right, and lastly, our bazooka. With speed attribute, any or EX skill damage taken reduced by a flat 20. Oh, man, that's what I always wanted. The enemy's doing 1,020,000 damage to me. I better round that off to a cool million. Moving on, second trait. 50% chance to prevent vernier consumption when stepping. I don't find that to be a very useful trait. All things considered, I don't find myself running out of vernier very often, if at all. So I don't really see this as useful, but each to their own. Maybe you find that really useful and necessary. I just think that first trait's a complete waste and it's just not worth investing in at all. Hey, Eason. Yeah, it's such a low flat rate too, considering we keep seeing like 800 and stuff, and they're just like lol 20. Then again, I guess it's like, a very old suit, and that was its like tier 1 trait. So anyways, let's take a look at the Nadaime? I'm not quite sure. Dai Shogun. Go with that. When C power is over 150,000, very easy to do. That's a negligible number. EX skill damage output boosted by flat 20. Okay, moving on. When physical damage taken, enemy all power reduced by 45%. I don't know if this is permanent. Excuse me. I don't know if that is a timed debuff, but it does require you to take physical damage, not beam damage. And it is obviously only going to reduce the power for the suit that this is on, meaning not going to be very useful for anyone else in your squad. Very selfish part. And considering you have to take damage before the reduction actually even gets applied, I don't know how useful that really is. Especially with that first trait. I think it's just a waste, honestly. Torso. EX skills do 7 digits worth of damage. Yeah, it's bonkers. When armor is 80% or less, buff EX skill effect up 30%, and with power attribute, buff EX skill time up. So this is neat. This is giving you a longer buff time and a stronger buff effect. However, 2 things to catch here. 1, buff EX skill time up 15%. Typically, skills will last, awakenings and stuff, they're like, 55, 60 seconds at max level or something, sometimes even, longer. 15% That's less than 10 seconds extra, and honestly, you should be able to finish up the fight before your buff runs out in most situations. And when armor's 80% or less, every buff gets a 30% steroid. Problem is, as I mentioned before, you have to take damage. That means you could be waiting an unknown amount of time, waiting for that damage to actually, show up and be applied. Yeah, no. Interesting with the combo of time and effect, but it's just not, it doesn't execute. Arms. SD tackle, we already know SD tackle, A- pierce, D power. We've seen it recently in this video. It's a hazard on the map unless you're using it, in which case it's the most useless thing in the world. So moving on. Tsunami slice. D pierce, A- power, low cooldown, and you swing into a single blade strike. I don't know if this is ranged. I don't know if this has a dash lock onto it. I don't know if this is one of those you have to be X distance away from your opponent for it to do anything. We recently had one that was reactive, where when you activated it, someone had to hit you within a short time window for it to actually do anything. Yeah. It's a projectile. Nice. If it's within a set distance in front of you, eh. If it's a reactive, nah. I hope it's a yeet. Someone said it's a yeet, but here's hoping, right? All right. Let's take a look at our backpack. The Omega Cannon. A+ pierce, B+ power, medium long cooldown. I have nothing to complain about there. That just looks like a big cannon, and that's it. Take a look at our axe. When armor is 90% or more, enemy melee damage plus 30%. Interesting. Okay. So this runs into the same issue I've had with the other enmity style parts. You gotta take damage, but 30% melee damage. Okay. Cooldown time up 10%, melee power boosted by 25%. All right. So this isn't an amazing set of numbers, all things considered. 55% boost to melee damage or a 10% cooldown increase and taking 10% damage. You could end up taking a lot more damage than that if you're not careful. It's Tsunami Slice is a yeet. The backpack is your Jirobi. Shoot 2 linear beams, deals damage from both. Yeah, cool. Okay, so Tsunami Slice being a yeet's really good. All right, and lastly, our bowgun. Weapon reload speed down 10%, so you take 10% longer to get this magazine reloaded for this weapon. The X skill power gets boosted by 25% for that. All right. And while heavy armor, shooting power boosted by 50%. Okay, that's interesting. So you're taking a 10% hit to reload speed, 25% boost to skill power, 50% boost to shooting power. The second trait is extremely powerful, pretty much encroaching on the territory of most limiteds with the 50% boost. But with that first trait, the EX skill power boosted 25% is not bad, but considering the 50% boost on the other part feels lackluster. For what this part is, this isn't bad. Yeah, for what this part is, it's got good buffs on it. It's just like, it's really weird. Like, because the 50% shooting power boost, right? Really, really good. But you got to be running heavy armor, which boosts shot attack, but it's not the most common of all of them. EX skill power boosted 25% is also really good. 10% reload speed. Who cares about that one? It's interesting. It's definitely on the higher end. I feel like that first trait, though, could be a lot. But then again, I guess I'm kind of scaling that off the second trait, which is ridiculous. So, yeah. I think this is kind of the winner for all the alternated parts that we've kind of looked at so far. I think this is like the best one outside of obviously the Night Gundam. Yeah, 50% shooting power is nothing to sneeze at. That's limited Sokai numbers there. Alright, and lastly, the high mobility type Zaku 2. Yeehaw. Physical range, weapon reload speed boosted 15%. Nah, it's pretty much a waste. When in arena sortie, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%. So while you're in an arena, you're getting a 20% initial. That's obviously excessively restrictive. You use it in arena. That's just, it's not worth it in my opinion. The first trait's effectively a waste. The second trait's just too restrictive to actually be. Torso. White Wolf. Tackle B+, Pierce B+, Power. You just run at them. Low cooldown. Alright, I'll call that Unga Bunga. Okay, acceptable. Arms. Infighter Job, melee crit. Nope, moving on. Infighter Job, squad all crit. Nope. Crit in this game is worthless. Don't even worry about it. Until they rebalance it, just ignore crit altogether. Because both of those things are crit, we just avoiding. Legs. With technique attribute, enemy melee power reduced by 25%. Okay, not amazed. Oh, excuse me. With technique attribute, enemy all power reduced by 30%. So interesting enough, as long as you're running technique attribute, that's 55% melee power reduction, 30% everything else. That is pretty hefty when you think about it. That'll be pretty nice if you're looking to build a very high all power reduction build or something. But outside of that, super defensive. And lastly, the backpack. While Xeon, melee power boosted by 25%. Okay, Xeon is an interesting tag. It's available on very, very few high-end parts, available on a good handful of other stuff, because a lot of the Zaku things are 4-star and under. And the 25% melee boost for when the suit came out, what it is. All right. While Xeon, enemy melee damage plus 30%. So this is one of those things where while you're Xeon, you're getting additions to both sides of the damage table. You're getting melee power boost and enemy melee damage boost. And because Xeon is a melee tag, melee defense up, melee attack up, interesting. It's a very cool combination going on. Great. Okay, with that, we're done. That's all the new alterations. That's all the new content, the event suit, and everything. And I didn't sneak any more in while I wasn't looking. So freedom! Alright, so everyone that tuned in, thanks for hanging out and all that fun stuff. Like I said, tomorrow, keep your eyes peeled. I will be making a post in Discord as well as uploading a video to YouTube. There is a giveaway happening tomorrow. I'm not going to say for what yet. But I recommend you keep an eye out for it. And I also have another video coming out tomorrow. Actually, I may just publish that after this. Maybe I'll schedule it for like 4 a.m. I'll leave it as is. It's like 10 hours from now. So, anyhow, thanks for tuning in, hanging out, guys. I'll see all of you probably relatively soon, actually. I plan on doing an FGO stream probably tomorrow, actually, going through the last little bit of the new, air quotes, last little bit, the new Lost Belt. And just talking FGO for anyone that's interested. Yeah. Peace out, guys. Look forward to the 2 new videos and probably a stream tomorrow. See you guys later.